So I want to talk about two specific things that we did that are I think they're kind of cool use cases for some of the technology stuff. So back in January, the VA hosted their first Veteran Career Fair and Expo. We had about, I think, 5,000 to 7,000 people showed up at the Washington Convention Center for a one-day holistic career fair, public-private. And we basically transplanted our entire operation from our Dumfries call center and our Evansburg, Pennsylvania call center right to the Washington Convention Center, and invited federal agencies and private companies to come and do on-the-spot hiring. So what we're saying is 0 to hire in 10 days. And I don't want to say that we actually planned this thing in 10 days. What happened was we started planning this multiple weeks ahead of time, but 10 days out we said, hey, we need a way to track all this stuff while we're actually at the career fair. And that was 10 days before the event. And working with some of the folks in Appian Professional Services, we actually built an application in Appian that we use to do registration, to track interviews, to track the coaching sessions, to track, we actually condensed the entire federal hiring process for non-competitive hires into a day. So you could show up in the morning, get an interview that day, and actually get offered a job before you left. Okay, so if you can imagine, that's a pretty tall order. And we built that in literally 10 days. So I'm going to show you a couple of the components of what we did. So the first thing was that it was based largely on tempo. And the reason we did that was because we were able to do searches kind of in real time to find users, to find applications. And what I'll show you in a minute when we talk about registration was, let me see this, so registration. So the way this worked was we had 35 computers set up, and we had both volunteer and temporary employees come and support us to do just registration that day. And we had about 15, 20 minutes to do training for them the day before, because we had failed to bring a projector to actually show them to everybody. So we found 2 computers with 2 laptops, we set them up, we had everybody kind of crowd around in groups, and we showed them, here's how you're going to use Tempo to actually register I think not everybody had to go through this registration, so I think we registered about 4,000 people through this system in one day. And so I guess the takeaway from this part was it was pretty easy to teach them how to do this using the Tempo interface, vice having to create an entire front-end application to do this, because all they had to do was basically click, create a new registration. After the registration, what we did was we had taken your information, we put in your service branch, all sorts of other information, and then we had it such that they clicked a button and it printed out a job routing form that they would take upstairs, that they would use to bring around to the hiring managers they meet and our coaches to, again, start the qualification process. What jobs you qualified for, what is the interviews we're going to schedule for you, what's the disposition, and then we captured all that stuff back into CMS. The funny part about this whole process was, by the end of the day, we had a way to go back, and if somebody kind of fat-fingered some information, they would go in and change it, and I'd be sitting there telling them how to do it, and they'd be like, no, Jason, that's not how you do it. You do it like this. And they'd go in and change all kind of stuff and move processes around and go into dashboards and change stuff. And I'm like, these guys learn this thing, in a day, really, in a day. We did build a mobile version of the registration, and what you're seeing here is a wonderful picture. So we had been there for about 15 hours setting up on Monday, and then at 9 o'clock, somebody says, oh yeah, here's the iPads. And the iPads they gave us were all dead. So you can see here we scrounged for, and they got these brick chargers here, so I had to find probably 15 of these power strips to use. But what we did was we set it up so that as we have this queue forming basically, for people to go and register, we would allow people to actually go and we could have you type in the registration, because it was basically the exact same interface that we were using on the desktop that would be on the iPad, the exact same thing. And again, same with the cell phone. Use it the exact same way. And the other thing that we were able to do was, because all of the events that were occurring on your case for the day were showing up in our Tempo feed, if John Smith came up to me and I was holding the iPad and say, well, where am I in the process? I type in John Smith, and it could say, here's all the actions that had been happening for John Smith. It's now in the quals room. It's now going to this hiring manager. It's now doing this. We could display that right on the iPad. But yes, I don't ever want to have to set up 30 iPads, download the Appian thing, set it all up within at 9 o'clock at night, which dragged on pretty long there. The coaching area. So we brought I don't know how many coaches we actually brought. I think it was in the about 45 coaches that we brought to do sit-down interviews right at the event. So we had laptops set up for them. They went right into CMS. You would come in, sit down with them. They would do a coaching session, log it into CMS, and we've captured that event. We've captured that coaching session. And I think that day alone, we did about 650 coaching sessions. So this is what we're talking about. So as kind of the pieces of it, and you'll see a bunch of these fields say missing, and I'll explain that in a second. But this is our CRM dashboard. So this is basically when I pull up this gentleman's dashboard. This is all the information that we have about him. We can see here that he's got a bunch of resumes that have been uploaded. We have certain data that's been captured from this person. The reason a lot of these fields are not filled in yet is because we haven't asked the questions yet from him. This person has gone on and registered. We don't require a lot of information when they register, simply because all of you have gone to a website before and they ask you 50 questions and you say, forget it, I'm not registering. So we make it very easy for them to get on, and now when they call into our call centers, we now have a new screen for our vet reps which pops up and it says, ask them the profile questions. And they ask all the questions and put the information in. But you can see we've got all the tier requests, so anytime this person's called in, we capture it. And all the stuff on the right side is our quick tasks that we can do supporting this person's case. This is an actual request. So this is somebody called in, they asked us a whole bunch of, we captured some information from them. We capture all the case notes for this person. We have all our actions on the right side. We have their contact information on the upper right. You can kind of see where they are in this process of the case. And so this is shared between all of our coaches. So again, one coach can pick it up if they're not there and you call in, and we can use that and another coach can look at it as well. But again, this was what they were using in that coaching area during the career fair. We also built a full set of forms just for the career fair. So we had forms that you could enter in all the job series codes for the event. We had forms that were a kind of slimmed down dashboard for the folks that were doing the quals and doing the interview, capture and all that stuff for each person. But we built a full set of forms and all the data structure behind it, like I said, in about 10 days. So now, we went and did it for 1 day, so now we're going to do it for 3 days. So we are supporting another veteran hiring fair in Detroit, and that is in the end of June. So the Detroit event is going to be 3 times larger. We hope at least 3 times larger. It's actually part of a larger event for, I believe it's a small business conference, for Veteran Small Business Conference. And so we kind of learned some lessons from the first go around, and so now we're going to kind of improve our application a little bit to make it work a little bit more streamlined for the event in Detroit. This is some of the press coverage we got from the first one. One of the nice things is I believe there was at least 440 job offers that day, and I think that's just on the government side. I don't think we captured as much of the private sector as we could. Let me just see here. So one of the new things that we do that's part of our program is we have this concept of self-certification. So we make a distinction in our program between what's competitive hire jobs and non-competitive hiring jobs. Non-competitive hiring jobs means that it doesn't go through the normal, what you would consider the normal federal hiring process. This is for people who qualify for things, maybe they're disabled. There's a set of questions that we're now going to ask up front to those veterans to self-certify by checking one of those boxes. That will come into Appian. Appian will apply a business rule and display whether that person is competitive or non-competitive to our coaches and the VISO folks who are using that system. That way we don't have to ask them on the day of for registration. We also have a pre-registration module that will allow them to sign up for training, sign up for coaching, sign up for a lot of things ahead of time. So we can pre-schedule all these things. And this stuff pulls dynamically straight from CMS. So we have an event system that we use to kind of put in training and coaching sessions, and those are displayed as available to the end user through the SharePoint site. And we can open and close them in CMS, and then when this form is displayed, they are open and closed based on availability. A couple other key enhancements here. One of the things that we're starting to do now to measure the kind of performance of our recruiting operations is tracking where we meet the veterans. So if we meet you at this large career fair in Detroit, that's one thing. If we meet you in a small where we just have a booth in somebody else's career fair, we're going to be able to track that. We want to be able to see what training those veterans have attended during the event. That way, as follow-up, we can say, oh, you went to the interview training at the Detroit fair. We have a streamlined registration process, and again, the goal is to triple the amount of registrations over the January career fair. So that's just a brief overview again of our VA for Vets program. Again, there's a lot of detail that we haven't really talked about on the CMS side, but we wanted to kind of talk about some of the, I guess, the more cloud, social, mobile stuff that we're doing because we actually are firm believers in it. But this has just been a great opportunity to work with the VA on a program that really does hit home for a lot of veterans. So again, thank you all very much for your time.